Y'all are now tuning into Abstract Thought. It's a podcast where all kinds of different creatives talk about their creative journeys, some of the things that they've gotten into over the years. I'm sitting down today with none other than Dane Smith. He's a tattooer, tattoo artist. I don't know the proper terminology, but
it don't matter.
he's a very skilled artist here out of Indianapolis, and I've looked up to his stuff for a really long time. He does really cool, like Japanese style tattoos that are some of my favorite. I don't have any tattoos, but if I did have some, I definitely hire Dane to do them because I love his style, his aesthetic, and his approach to stuff. So today we're just gonna be checking in on some of his story and whatnot. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Dane. How you doing, man?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. Doing pretty good. I actually have today off. I had cancellation, so I was pretty excited to have a Saturday off. It's been the first time in I don't even know, like 4 years.
Definitely. Yeah, I have a few buddies that are also tattooers or tattoo artists, and what's the proper terminology for that?
So there's actually a big divide on this topic. It really is kind of funny. So tattooers or tattoo artists, like a lot of times people will like have the hoity-toity like, oh, I'm a tattoo artist, and it's like, yeah, it's cool, but we all are tattooers. We're craftsmen, we're tradesmen. Like when it comes down to tattooing, you really are doing a trade, because you can actually be a super successful, awesome tattooer and actually have no ability of drawing. You're just really good. You're just really good at applying. You're basically like being like a craftsman or whatever. And honestly, like some of those tattooers are my favorites, because like it's like kind of like folk art versus like fine art. Like if you're like I don't know if you're classically trained or anything, but the difference between like a classically trained artist and like a folk artist is like sometimes you see folk art, you're like, this is so much cooler because you're not even thinking about where a shade should go or lighting should be or anything. You're just doing it. And sometimes it produces the best art. So honestly, I wish I was more of a craftsman and applying stuff than I am a tattoo artist, where I'm just like, is it cool looking? Tight, cool. I'm like focused more on like the drawing aspect. I really love drawing. So I'll take you can call me anything you want. My LLC name is Scab Miner LLC. Like just mining scabs all day. So I don't really care.
Hilarious. Yeah, I didn't know terminology wise, because I know in the like bicycle cycling community, they're like, we're cyclists or we're bicyclists.
God, right?
And then you've got the motorcycle dudes they're considered bikers too. I don't know.
Yes. Oh, and you say motorcycle, not motorcycle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's a big thing too. They're like, oh, my motorcycle. I'm like, what? They're like, well, you wouldn't call it a bicycle, would you? And I was like,
true.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always funny, the different ins and outs of like these kind of subculture things. Like in graffiti, for instance, there's this term called being a toy. And being a toy is like, you're just like a little kid playing with toys. Like you don't know what you're doing. You don't have the right terminology for stuff. So it's funny. Like I think each subculture has their own version of a toy. I'm sure in tattooing, there's a term for a scratcher. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what are they doing? They're just scratching people's skin.
Yeah, they're just fucking people up. They're just scratching, they're just like, they're just taking this stuff and they're just like, there's no rhyme or reason, and they're just scratching people. And we call them scratchers because a lot of times a tattoo that is not well applied, or like with the knowledge of how to apply a tattoo, looks like scratches.
That's crazy.
So that's where it came from.
Scratchers. Huh. Yeah, every subculture. I think cyclists, or whatever the term is for those type of folks, have their own term.
I'm definitely one of those guys. I'm like the guy that just commutes on the cycle, but I'm not cool enough to be like a cyclist.
It's interesting how things get so like culturized, and there's all these different rules, like especially in graffiti, like it's a subculture,
dude,
grounded around like not following the rules and like, doing things against authority. Meanwhile, there's all these authoritarian like figures in the culture who have a specific rule set you have to follow. It's like, didn't we get into this to not follow the rules?
Very similar.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, tattooing is, it was made by bikers and gangsters and ne'er-do-wells and delinquents. And now it's like, there's like different levels of like, if you've been a ne'er-do-well for like 20 years of your own volition, and you've done a really good job like putting your work out there and, doing like, respectful stuff, you can somehow become like a better part of being a ne'er-do-well, and like people will look up to you for being a ne'er-do-well. But it's like
What is that word? Ne'er do well?
ne'er-do-well, like an evildoer, like a criminal, like a convict, like literally a person from prison. Like
I've never heard that word before.
I got it from SpongeBob.
Nice.
It was when Gary was in there's a little like the library, and he was like, "You ne'er-do-well." But I don't want the exact definition. It's an evildoer. So but yeah, if you're a delinquent and you've been a delinquent for like 20 years and you've been like, doing your job really well, somehow you become validated or have like some like sort of like street certification that you're like, it's cool that you're like that guy, but you were probably literally a scratcher or a toy, starting out for like a couple of years, and then you just had to like, I don't want to say pay your dues because I kind of hate that term, but kind of figure your own way through it. Like tattooing is becoming a lot less gatekeepy now, which is kind of cool. And I'm a lot less gatekeepy too. Like I don't care. Like I don't I don't care if people are tattooing out of their house. The only thing I care about is like, if you're gonna tattoo out of your house, like at least take some like bloodborne pathogen courses so you're not like contaminating your friends with like staph or MRSA. And other than that, man, like go at it. I don't care.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you get into tattooing? Is this something like, did you have any family members who had some tattoos that you thought were cool, or how
Yeah.
did you kind of like seed into this interest?
So my great grandpa Spike, he had a
Such a cool name.
yeah, yeah, his name is Harry. His name is Harry Spiker, but all of his stuff in his whole life is so crazy. He was like an old man, so he just like labeled everything in his house Spike. So everything just said Spike. But so he had a military tattoo. He was stationed in Hawaii for a little bit. He was a Marine, and he had like a little hula girl like tattooed on his forearm. And I mean, it was probably in Hawaii, which is kind of cool. So it might have been from Sailor Jerry, which is like mind blowing. But he's
Is that
dead.
like
So
the OG tattoo artist guy
yeah,
from
yeah,
Hawaii?
yeah. Norman Collins. Yeah. Like the guy who basically invented like purple pigment, who invented the modern power supply, who invented like it's like crazy stuff. So
Pioneering stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he had a tattoo, and I was like, oh, that is so cool. So in high school and in middle school, I would draw myself like all the time. But then when I turned 18, my junior year in high school, I was like, okay, this is tight. So I'm 32 now. So I was 18. Was that 14 years ago? I don't know.
I'm bad at
So
math.
yeah, me too, right? So I bought a Chinese tattoo kit off the internet, like off eBay, with my like brand new bank account that I got when I was 18. And so, because no one could stop me because I was 18, I could buy whatever I want on the internet. And I had it shipped to my house, and I tattooed all my friends in high school, and I fucked them all up. I like ruined them. I ruined them. I was doing like improper like sterile techniques or like hygiene techniques. I just like fucked their tattoos up. It was like awful. I did a bad job. I remember I'll give you a real quick story. I was
Sure.
tattooing this my friend's rib, and the needle was so barbed, and I don't know what a barbed needle was at the time, but the needle was so barbed that when I was like running a line, it like stuck in his skin, and I couldn't get it out.
My
I had to
gosh.
literally like hold the skin and like bucket just like pop.
Oh
And he
my
was like,
gosh.
"What was that?" And I was like, "Nothing. Don't worry about it." just straight up fucking his body up.
Oh man.
Yeah. But yeah,
That's
so I did
crazy.
that. And
You live and learn. And
yeah, you
some
live and
people
learn.
maybe die in the process.
Yeah, right. So I did that, and then I ended up talking to my college my high school professors and well teachers, and I was like, what should I do? I want to do tattooing. And they were like, no, you should go to art school, man. Like that's where you become an artist, is an art school. And I was already in the art program, and like really, I don't want to say good at art, but I was better at art than I did art a lot. And I did it because it was fun and it made me feel good. So I was a little better at it than most people. So I went into art and went to college and did art there and painted. But while I was in college and while I was in my professor, I was also tattooing out of my apartment at Riley Towers downtown on the fifth floor of the third tower. If anybody lived there, I was tattooing on a balcony. It was so sick
It's
and
tight.
overlooking the city. Honestly, I would trade that right now, tattooing there anytime.
That is pretty
But
cool.
yeah, right. It's kind of like luxurious, right? That's like what celebrity tattooers do now for their celebrity clients. They're like,
Yeah.
we're going to go to Hawaii and overlook the beach. And then meanwhile, back, 12 years ago, I'm like half drunk, like tattooing somebody for like a bowl of spaghetti. No joke, a bowl of spaghetti, like literally, like stuff like that.
Dang.
Yeah, it was good spaghetti though, so that was cool.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I
How
did
did
that.
you, but before you keep going, I have one question. How did you just get into art in general, like early on as a kid, drawing? Do you have family people who are creative or
Yeah,
friends or something?
it's kind of dark. I grew up as like a child of like physical abuse. So I was like in a bad situation with me and my twin brother. And they just gave us like coloring books and like drawings, like paper and stuff to like occupy ourselves. And that became like kind of a way out of like our reality because we didn't have any control of our situation being like a kid. So we did art to basically just like kind of remove ourselves from our current situation and like create like a little form of happiness while also gaining like a little bit of control in our lives.
Yeah.
We didn't have any, so it was like, and then at 6 we got taken away with child services and like our grandparents started raising us, which is awesome,
Wild.
very awesome for them. But it was like because of that we'd always been like into art, so I've been drawing since I could walk.
Crazy.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's
Thanks,
so cool though at the
thanks
same
child
time.
abuse.
Child abuse.
I made a career in child abuse. Trauma will, a little childhood trauma is probably good for you.
That's terrible.
Oh,
But
it's somewhat true though.
it is
It's like
somewhat
a fucked
true.
up way. If you
Yeah,
can
I
manage
mean,
it.
you have to be kind of crazy to get into art and like try to pursue that as a career anyways. I mean,
Any
there's so
creative.
many more stable options out there. You could be an engineer, you could be, you could work construction, you could do all these things that have like a set, net pay at the end of the year
Yeah.
of how much money you're going to make. Thinking that your ideas that you pull out of your head are going to be groundbreaking, especially like in the modern era where like I've said this on a podcast before, but like Michelangelo has already existed. The Renaissance has already happened. All these masterful painters from
Yep.
previous generations have just taken art to a level that it's like, you really think in 2022 you can paint stuff and people will even care about it at all?
They
It's
won't
it's
care
kind of a
about it.
crazy
They
approach, but
won't. Yeah, they
you
won't.
got to you got to be messed up a little to even try that. I feel like.
Well, yeah, and in order for you to put the due diligence to like be successful at it, like I mean, people only, I always give this analogy. It's like you watch like a play or watch a movie. It's like that movie was so good. It was an hour and a half. It was beautiful. It was awesome. Or even if they hated it, who cares? Your experience of an hour and a half, literally, you just watched some like 200 people's 4 years of their life.
Yeah.
And we just digested it and we just shit it out and we didn't even care most of the time.
Yeah. Like, man, that movie sucked. And there was like hundreds of people in
Dude,
animation studios and
any
people
unpaid
spending.
interns.
Yeah, that too. Tons and tons of people. There's a lot that goes into it for sure.
It's fucked up. Yeah. And it's like, so when people, I always try to tell people when they're like digesting any form of art, I mean, anything, I'm like, think about the amount of time that went into that. And then like just stop for 2 seconds and be like, okay. Like it made me feel this way. So it was kind of successful. It might not have been for me, but it was, you have to be kind of crazy. So yeah, I pursued art all the time. It was like a self-soothing thing. It made me happy. So when I'm like stressed or like having a hard time, I like create. So that really helps out. I know it's like such a like, oh yeah, cool man, art or therapy, blah blah, but it really is. It really helps
Yeah.
out. So
No, I think that's at the core of why a lot of people create stuff. I mean, maybe not necessarily childhood trauma, but
child abuse.
yeah,
Couple
like
broken arms will set you right, man. I'll tell you what.
yeah, I mean, everyone has their own kind of source of fuel, I guess you would say. But I think that's probably what sets you apart from a lot of other people is that you do have that drive. And it's like the way I've explained it to myself is like you almost have to. Like if you don't, like you'll just go crazy. Like
Yeah,
if I
you
haven't
really
created something or gone out and painted something in a while,
feel
like I
bad.
get antsy and I'm just like pissed off and just
I'm
having a hard
grouchy.
time.
I'm
Yeah.
grouchy. Yeah, it's good I lucked out with getting into tattooing and getting into art and just like pursuing that. And now I've been paid to be an art. I've been like a full-time tattooer for 12 years now,
Crazy.
like tattooing. And it's like, dude, it is insane. Like the fact that I can even say that now is like wild. Like I remember being like, I can't wait to be able to do this for a
Yeah.
living. this is before like really Instagram. This is before like Twitter and stuff. And like, if you wanted to see like tattooing, you had to get like tattoo magazines. So you didn't have any like way to expose yourself to like modern tattooing. And I just can't believe I made it out of the woods.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome,
I made
dude.
it out of the woods. Like I'm still working every day and trying really hard, but like it's
You know
cool
where
to
you came
see.
from.
Yeah, and it's cool to see like the difference in it. Like even in the small amount of time I've been in tattooing in Indianapolis, it's night and day different. And I'm so stoked to see all these new artists coming. And I know a lot of old tattooers are like, fuck these new kids. I don't, blah, blah, blah. Like they're all like worried, like taking your jobs. I'm like, who cares? Like if you're good with your job and you've been tattooing long enough and you've got clients and stuff, like you're doing great. Like just keep doing that, man. Like, and if you're not, then maybe you should retire.
Yeah, the old guard always has kind of a hard time looking at some of the stuff that's coming up and maybe appreciating it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, I imagine it's scary. I get it. You've worked really hard and secured, your clientele and you've hustled and gritted it out for so long that, new people coming on the scene, if they're advancing quicker than you advanced early on,
So stoked.
you feel upset about it per se, but really like it's a completely
Happy.
different time, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you should just be stoked for them and maybe try to help them out or something
Yeah,
and
for
and
sure.
join forces and I don't know if you feel like people in tattooing are like not taking like the culture or something and doing it properly, like
Yeah.
maybe reach out and try to help somebody instead of just like
Yeah.
crapping on people. That happens a
Totally
lot
agree.
in art and graffiti all the time.
Oh, I bet. Oh my God. Graffiti. It's kind of cool. Like I really love graffiti and like mural artists and street art and like these two countercultures because they're so intertwined. Like tattooing is not in the art world, it is at the bottom. Graffiti in the art world is at the bottom. Like we really are at the bottom. Like we're just
Mm.
now seeing like validation for like our works and like people are like coming more forward, with like famous and whether it's like whether I want to admit it or not, and whether you want to admit it or not, like people like Ami James at Miami Ink or Kat Von D or these like big wigs or whatever, like they put modern tattooing into society. Like they really did. And like people like Banksy and like who are some other ones I really like? Nichos. Nichos, is that how you say his
Yeah,
name?
dude, he kills. He's so
Like
good.
people like that were like they're elevating this like mural artist or the street artist or whatever. And they start, I mean, Nichos is a start as like a writer, like doing this stuff and then like elevating it, putting it into like people's homes and stuff. It's super sick.
Yeah, that's wild to
Whether you
see.
love it or not, like they're validating it, they're putting that on their backs and they're validating like our counterculture art to the mainstream media, which puts money in our pockets and also gets people to like, I don't know, man, like think maybe that they could be an artist or like, do more creative things. And I think that's great. So
Yeah, inspiring the next generation's huge. Passing stories along or passing influence along.
yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I go back to like I had an art teacher in like middle school who he knew I was colorblind, but I could paint like stuff that was not the right colors.
Yeah.
But if I painted it well, he'd still be like stoked on it, and he'd say, "Hey,
Totally.
that looks great. Like, if that's the world you see, I want to see more of it." And like
That's so
just
sick.
having a certain influence like that. Like, did you have anybody early on who was like, "Dane, like you are really talented. Like you're crushing it, and keep working at this art practice," and kind of gave you some fuel to be like, "Hey, maybe I am good at this."
Bill Eby in high school. He's my art teacher. He was the nicest dude ever. He was so awesome. Like he constantly was like, "Oh man, you can do this. Like this is great," and like was so like inspiring and like to do art and like really help me out like any of my creative endeavors. And he's awesome. I I'm trying to think. So in middle school, I hated my art teacher and I wanted to quit doing art. I was like,
Really?
I'm gonna be a lawyer. I was like, fuck art. Art sucks. And then I went to high school and met Bill Eby. It was like, holy shit, like art is so nice. It's so cool. It's so relaxing. Like I forgot how much this was like a part of my soul and I missed it. And dude, from literally from freshman year to like now, I haven't stopped making like a piece of art, like at least like every other week or once a week. And I make a piece of art now for work 4 or 5 times a week, every year, all year, except for quarantine. And quarantine, I painted like a million things. So
Yeah. Yeah, that
yeah,
was cool to watch too. I don't For some of our listeners who maybe don't know, like Dane started using, I think it was your garage space, and you just
Yeah.
you started painting like massive wood panels and canvases and stuff.
Just
And
trying to do aerosol, dude. Man, that shit is hard. And I have so much respect for you guys that can do that. Like, I literally look at just the craftsmanship of writers and doing clean lines and solid fills is in fucking insane. And this is from a person that likes to do clean lines and solid fills, but on a much smaller scale. And I always tell people doing massive paintings, like you put a painting and you put it up against your face and you're looking at it and you're working on something, you can't see what the fuck you're doing.
yeah,
You only see a small part of it. So like the ability to translate stuff in a large scale is incredible. Like as yourself doing that is like just being able to have the wherewithal and the vision to do something large and follow through with it in a good way is insane.
yeah, I thought it was so cool. Like when we did the mural fest that you and I think
Alyssa,
Alyssa, yeah, you and Alyssa, like, was that the first thing you guys had ever spray painted before?
I think that was our second, maybe yeah, it was our second thing together. She's great. She was my apprentice at the time. She's a far better tattooer than I am already. So she's been tattooing for like a year and a half. And I'm like, yeah, you're better than me. I have nothing to teach you except for like I can teach her like big layouts and stuff, but as far as like tattooing as like a craft, like she's far better than I'll ever be. So
Crazy.
yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, we collabed on that like uh skeleton brain thing. It was super fun and it's really cool too. She's really good at like telling me that I suck and like telling me where to put like she's like, that's all fucked up, that drawing's all messed up, you need to change this or whatever. She's like a really good illustrator. She's a far better at illustrating than I am. So I appreciate her insight with that stuff.
Yeah,
But
I
it
thought
was
it was so cool that you guys were able to do that, because I was impressed that you come from this tattooing and drawing background, but you weren't afraid to dive into using a completely different tool. Like a lot of
fun.
people, the first mural they do is like this extremely daunting, like high stress kind of experience. And
Yeah.
I just saw you guys get out there and get after it. And I was like, dude, that is what's up. Like
We
you
had
guys didn't
fun,
seem
man.
afraid. Like,
No.
maybe you were rendering something and there were a few drips, but I mean, you realize, oh, well, I can just cut back, or like,
Yeah.
I think you had enough artistic practice in just years grinding and drawing that you're like, you know what? It's just another tool. I
Yeah.
can contour a line.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes me longer than I want it to, but I
Totally.
think you have enough art practice background that you were able to really come up with a great result. I was
Thanks,
impressed.
man. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was definitely working large scale is so humbling. I mean, people say tattooing is humbling, and it is, but like then to take what you said, like what your knowledge or whatever, and to switch mediums is definitely difficult. I always tell people like I am usually like I just started like 3D sculpting on the iPad like a couple months ago just for fun, just to try it out. And I found out that it makes me nauseous, so I quit
Really?
doing it. But I wasn't afraid to do it. I was like, I want to make toys, and everybody's like, "You're gonna do what?" And I go, "I'm gonna make vinyl toys." And they're like, "Why would you do that?" I'm like, "I don't know, why not?" Like, so I figured I'd start doing that. But I think as an artist, like being able to like use other mediums, like I think, I mean, you could probably say this for yourself. Like, we just want to make something, and it doesn't really matter how we get to the end result as long as we made it and we had a good time. And I'm just trying to have a good time. I'm just trying to get a little bit of escape, a little bit of paradise. So every second that I'm usually making something is like another little, whether it be not a great paradise sometimes, when you're making something you fucking hate,
Yeah.
but at least it's a little bit of like a different reality for like, however long you're working on it.
Yeah, definitely, man. That there's a sense of like kind of getting lost in your work that's really, when you're testing new ideas and coming up with new things you've never tried before, and just the process of like mentally trying to figure that out is always like a pretty zen-like experience. It's like
Oh,
time
for sure.
passes by and you don't even know what you painted, but you're like, that was so fun.
It was
I
so
can't wait
fun.
to try it
Yeah,
again.
exactly. And I think a lot of I try to tell this to everybody because I get a lot of people in my chair when I'm tattooing and they're always like, "Oh, I wish I could do art, blah blah." I'm like, "You can do art on the couch." I was like, "Get a little piece of paper and a ballpoint pen. You can make like literally the most realistic or the most like fun illustration ever, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's like as long as you're making something and you're having a good time, you're having a good time, you're relaxing, you're making something with your hands, like that is so much more self-fulfilling and so much more therapeutic than you scrolling on your phone for fucking 2 hours on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, when you could be making something and like, medicating your brain with like some like a little bit of oxytocin, serotonin, and it's great. We should all do that a little bit every other day, just make something. Like, I think that's why we have so much hard problems with mental illness right now, is because of social media and because of people just mindlessly doom scrolling. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, being stuck at desk jobs all day where you don't make anything. You're just like filling in some numbers, and then you go home and then you watch TV and then you go to bed and you do it over and over and over again, but you haven't actually made anything.
Yeah, it's dark.
Yeah, it's super dark. Can you imagine doing that lifestyle?
Oh, I did, man.
It's hard.
Yeah.
How was it? It was terrible.
Yeah, I worked in advertising for a few years, and like I've said this on the podcast a few times. I have tremendous respect for the people who work in the industry who actually find joy in that type of work, because there's some people with their lifestyle that actually fits their goals and what they're trying to do, and like, more power to them. I think that's great. But for me, I just felt like I was designing like Facebook and Instagram ads and stuff for companies that like I don't really like, I'm not excited about per se, which is, it's whatever. It's a job, and they were paying me good to do it, and it was a great opportunity. But when you make like an Instagram ad and then it just goes live on Facebook or Instagram or something, like, it doesn't feel real. It's just like a JPEG on the internet that like people don't like. No one's hyped to see an ad. I mean, maybe if you really, really, really want a product and then you see an ad for it, you're like, oh, I actually needed that. And then you like impulsively buy that product. Yeah. Sure. That's maybe the one instance where you're scrolling Instagram and you're like, I'm excited that this ad showed up. Yeah. But generally speaking, you're like legitimately annoying people, and you're taking like the amount of seconds in their day to just like try to sell them something. It just, I didn't have fun doing that and creating from that perspective. I don't know. It felt a little creatively limiting for me at some point, but
no, for sure. And you weren't excited about it. So it was like really hard for you to create. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, 10 years of just doing like whatever that walks in the door, whatever people want. And it wasn't exciting all the time. Yeah. It was a job. It's a job. I always tell people we are craftsmen. So like my job is to do what people want. But it is like to get to that point or be able to like show some, but you with those kind of jobs, those kind of creative fields or whatever, your hands are a lot more bound. At least even tattooing, starting off tattooing, I was able to at least like, yo, this is what you wanted, but I also drew this other thing when you didn't tell me to draw, and it's extra and it's just like a little different than what you were thinking. So do you want this that's different and cool and unique, or do you want the same thing that you wanted to get? Like you wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but I gave you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with bacon on rye bread with a bunch of other random shit that you thought you didn't want, and then you're like, that looks more appealing, and then you get to give them the crazy sandwich when they wanted the really boring sandwich.
That's a good analogy, actually.
But you can't. But you can't. Some with creative jobs and super corporate jobs like that, there is no option. You only produce PB&Js. If you fucking go crazy, they're like, we're not paying you for the crazy.
Yeah, and I would go crazy. I would design some stuff with like some weird hyper futuristic graffiti influence. They're like, dude, why are you doing this? Like, we didn't ask for this. So in a way, like I'm not the type of guy for that position. And it was kind of a hard pill to swallow, but there's someone else who could be in that role, who could fulfill that role better for the company than myself. So it was hard to accept that, but it was also very freeing to realize like, hey, I'm really passionate about these ideas because I'm passionate about them. And I don't think a company is going to really get behind that per se, unless they're seeking out something that is like that. Right.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right too, because like with company mindset, if you think about that too, they're like looking at checks and balances. So they're like, we have this fucking off the wall dude making extra shit right now. We ain't paying for it.
Right.
And they're like, and then eventually, you get your PB&J sandwich extraordinary turned down so many times that you're tired of making your crazy PB&J, and then you just start making the regular one. And they're like, hell yeah, we whittled them down. But it's like, it's to put creatives in jobs like that you're gonna have pushback, man. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna you're gonna have pushback.
And I feel like my PB&J sandwiches were just like really, they were like dollar store ingredient PB&J
Yeah,
sandwiches. I
exactly.
wasn't
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
to make the sandwich
You were
with
like,
good peanut butter and good
exactly.
jam. I was just like, all
I,
right, let's go to the dollar store and get like terrible white bread from
but
like
that's what they
Aldi or
wanted.
something.
But it's what they wanted, you know. And a
They
lot
wanted something a little bit more polished. I feel like they wanted some Jif
of
or maybe some
you're
like,
just over it. You're like, this is what you get. Yo, this
yeah, a
bread
little
was on the
bit.
floor for like 4 weeks, but it looks pretty good. I cut all the mold off, so you're welcome. Like,
Yeah. I definitely feel like I could have probably done better at that
no,
position,
I mean,
but
at least you're cool with like knowing that though. Like shit, man. I mean, I can't tell you how many I mean, I hate to say it, but I can't tell you how many tattoos I've done where I'm like, what do you want? And they go this. I'm like,
good
let's
Lord.
fucking let's do it, man. You probably see these memes all the time on the internet, like, oh, you want a rose, compass, pocket watch, wolf, lion, or whatever. Like, yeah, of course you do. Totally got it. I did a lion every single week, 4 times a week for 5 years. Yeah, and like a realistic one. I could do a realistic lion like this big in like 2 hours. Like,
What's the reason that people want a lion? Like what,
I don't
just
know,
for
dude. 'Cause
strength or some
it's
sort
tough,
of,
man. It's fucking tough, bro.
yeah, I guess.
Well, and I think also too, I'm gonna reconnect something that you said earlier
Sure.
on. So what you were saying, people see art all the time, right? And they could give a shit less because it doesn't matter because it's already been done, right? They're just like, oh, cool,
It,
flip, right?
yep.
Okay. There's a reason why. The most reason why, and you know this as an artist, is because they don't have any memories or anything that they can attach themselves to, and it isn't widely accepted. So it's already feared. So it's feared because it's not widely accepted because it's different.
Hmm.
That's always been the case with society. If anything's different, it's usually feared, or it's like, I don't know about that. Like it's uncomfortable. So it's
Hmm.
uncomfortable. And then the second thing is they don't have any memories with the item. So that's where pop culture comes in. People love pop culture all the time. Pop culture is great. They can attach themselves to it. If you put a picture of Bender or Rick and Morty on a mural or on a building, people love that shit
Hey,
10 times,
that's Rick and Morty. You
nine
know,
times
they
out of 10
identify
because
with
they
it.
have a memory. They're like, oh, I
Right.
remember that time I got really high and I watched Rick and Morty and it was so sick and I ate this weird PB&J that Nick gave me. But like people need that. So they have to have something that connects them to it. So that's where the lion comes in, where a lion, rose, compass, they've seen that widely, there's like a million photos of just like on the internet of like kind of buff, good looking dudes with like a realistic lion and a pocket watch and a rose. And they don't want that tattoo. What they want to do is they want to be that guy. They want to be the hot guy with the realistic tattoo on them that's like really beautiful and edgy and like widely accepted and widely liked by moms, girlfriends, boyfriends, whoever. So they love that.
So
So they
Chads.
want to be that guy and they want, that's the memory they have. They're like, I'm gonna be the guy. And early 2000, like not too early, like 2010, there was this picture of this really jacked dude with this fucking tribal. It wasn't even real. It was like all the way from his shoulder to his wrist, and it was on the internet everywhere. And I got that image every single week for years. And it was just because they wanted to be a big jacked dude. And I get it. Like I want to be actually I really don't, but like they wanted to be a jacked hot dude. And that dude was hot and he was jacked. So I mean that's what they were more unhappy with themselves as a whole than as like a sticker they wanted to put on their body. So, and also, by the way, for society and for anybody listening, you can't be that jacked dude unless you have that exact arm. You can't have that tattooed unless you have that exact arm. So you already got to be the hot dude before you get to be the hot dude tattooed dude. So me as a kind of a skinny dude isn't ever going to look that cool. So
Hilarious. I wanted to touch on something here. Like, so the only parallel I can draw is in graffiti right now. There's this super prevalent kind of avant-garde style movement that's happening called anti-style. And
oh,
it's
cool.
basically people who are painting graffiti, but they're trying to paint graffiti with none of the rules, like none of the standard practices of like, okay, here's the structure of the letter. I'm going to color it in, then I'm going to outline it, then I'm going to do 3D, and then I'm going to put a bubble background. Like those are kind of the standard template of graffiti lettering rules or whatever. these people are like painting terrible color schemes on purpose. Like they're some of it from my perspective isn't really the most beautiful stuff in the world,
Yeah.
but I have tremendous respect for the fact that they really don't care about what the
I
final product is.
I
And
love it.
aesthetically speaking, I'm not going to get stoked on it per se, but I know they're probably having a blast doing it, and so for that reason I have respect for it. But
Totally agree.
I was wondering, in tattooing, is there some sort of movement that's kind of similar to that, where like I've seen a couple like Instagram profiles of people who like it's just black ink and it's just like they'll tattoo like
Yep.
I'm struggling to kind of articulate what it is, but it's like basically your whole body will be covered with just black line work that's like really minimal. And the
Mhm.
tattoos are completely unrelated, unconnected. They're not like, I can tell like your tattoos are extremely thought out, extremely considered, and like the composition is as such that, you've crafted it, you've drawn it
Art
in
background.
Procreate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and there's this new wave that maybe seems like, and I could be wrong, I'm just kind of speculating here, but it almost seems like stick and pokey, or like,
No, you're right.
I don't know, what's your perspective on some of that?
I'm 50-50. I'll give you the reason why. I like when people, I'm really big on form and body. So you're using a wall, right? For your medium. And when you're looking at the wall, you're not thinking, I'm just going to put a sticker on it. You're like, you especially, I really appreciate this. When you're doing buildings, you're like thinking the points, you're like, okay, the corners of this is going to line up with this, and it's going to link with this, and it's going to be this whole thing. And you're using the whole building because you're doing an art on that medium.
Right.
So there's two mediums, it's the graffiti and it's the building. So you're using the building as a medium, which you should be using. So me as a tattooer, I'm using an arm. I should use the arm because I should design something to fit the arm. Because why would I do it on an arm then? I could just do it on a piece of paper. Like the arm
Right.
doesn't need to exist, so I'm just going to ignore all of it. So there's two or three movements right now. One is shitty tattoos are good. And I say shitty by, I mean, people literally hand poking crudely, like, God, what is it called? It's basically, I think it's called anti-tattoo. I think it's the
Yeah.
same thing, but it's
It's
like,
probably parallel with
yeah, and it's
the
terribly drawn, like little kid drawings
shaky
that have
lines.
shaky lines that were either hand poked in by a novice or it's supposed like tried to be novice. And there's a guy, I think his name's Otto Christ or whatever on Instagram. He's got like 1 billion followers or some shit and charges like crazy amounts of money. But he does tattoos that are like, I mean, they're terrible. They're literally awful.
From a
But
craft perspective.
from a craft perspective, from an art perspective, from a viewer perspective, from a client perspective, they're awful. But here's the thing. I don't mind that he's doing it because people are getting it and they're like obviously giving consent to the artist to do that. And that's what they want. They want like a hokey, stupid drawing. Like you ever seen Porus Walker, a guy that does like they're crudely drawn like drawings that are like they're kind of adolescent looking, but they're funny as fuck. They're just like hilarious. Like I like that stuff. Like if it's funny and it serves a purpose and it makes me feel something, I'm like totally about it and I'm cool with it. There's another movement where people are becoming more abstract or more like formalist in thinking where they're using like the body as like a whole canvas, but it's just like lines or it's like figures or shapes. Or there was that crazy German dudes or whatever nationality they were that were like blacking people's faces out, and it was like the Brutal Black Project. They were literally seeing how much pain they could cause an individual, and that was like it was like an art performance slash tattooing slash like therapy for masochists, I guess, and they're definitely sadists. So
Sounds like a fun time.
yeah, and like if you watch
What?
it, you can look it up on YouTube. It's fucking insane.
Oh
But it's
man.
these two dudes that are literally
Ouch.
like their whole goal is to like hurt their client as much as possible, and their client is super for it. So
That's weird.
I don't want to get into that because that also seems like a weird bedside manner that I'd have to have with my client. Like I already do hurt my client all the time, and I think it's hilarious because I'm a jerk. But a lot of my clients are like they're what's that called, repeated clients, and I have like good rapport with them. We have good like mutual trust, and it's fine. And I can be kind of catty back and forth, like, yo, you're gonna make it, man. You're kind of being a little bitch right now. Like, stuff like that.
Just teasing
And
them.
Yeah, because there's a mutual respect for it. But yeah, there's that weird movement. I like the weird abstract sort of just like doing like shapes and like figures. There's an artist out of San Diego, California named Fibs on Instagram, but his work is he's doing like traditional Japanese like subjects, but he is elongating them and using only parts of them. And like it'll be like a whole arm from like this part, it'll just be like peony flowers. And then it'll like stop and turn into something else, like just like some like weird lines and some shapes. But he's using the whole body and contouring with it. So he's using the other medium, which is the body, and then he's using his stuff on top of it, and he's hand drawing it on so it fits. I think that's fantastic. I like when people are using like the other mediums. The whole anti-tattoo style, some of it's not for me, but again, it wasn't for me in the first place, so it was for other people, and I'm totally okay with that. There's like Pete Davidson's like covered in like garbage tattoos.
Yeah, that's the prime example for sure.
And he's really popular right now, so everybody knows about him. So he's covered in a lot of anti-tattoos, like anti-style tattoos. The guy from Diane Word, he's covered in like prison-looking anti-tattoos. And there's actually a guy in Cape Town, South Africa, that one of my buddies, Shane, used to work at his shop. It was like Sinza Styles, who does his tattoos, and he does them bad on purpose to look like prison. He's not from prison. He didn't get them in prison.
It just looks hard. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not even like actually that character. Like, it's actually like a character he made. It's kind of like riffraff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what my friend Shane, who lives in Africa, says that.
Really? So he's like a regular dude, and that's like the persona.
Yeah. Diane Ward is basically South Africa's riffraff.
Yeah. Yep. That makes a lot of sense. But dude, did you see him in Chappie, that movie?
Yeah.
Dude. That movie got really bad reviews, but I actually
enjoyed
it.
It was cool, though. I don't care. It was cool. The aesthetic was cool. Was cool. You as an artist, you're watching this and you're like, this is kind of edgy. This is kind of cool. And it made you feel something. And it's like, I like when I look at stuff. And Chappie especially had a lot of like street artist influence. Like, I mean, their whole aesthetic is really street art. And I really like it because it's something you don't see every day. It makes you feel a certain way, and it's something different. So as long as the art is done in a way that they're having a good time, and it's not just like being destructive for destructive's sake, I'm super part of it. Like, yeah, especially with tattooing. Oh my God, dude, you can hurt some people.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, there's a lot of that in like graffiti these days too, where it's just like people just out kind of destroying stuff to destroy stuff, which oddly enough is truly maybe one of the purest forms of graffiti. Like if you really look up the definition of graffiti, like they're legitimately being vandals. Yeah.
Vandalism, dude.
In a way you kind of have to respect the hustle. Maybe it's not for me per se, but yeah, it definitely takes guts and gusto to try to do that.
I like it when it's like in a really hard spot. Like I don't like it when it's like if they're doing like a tag or whatever and it's like, yo, dude, you just fucking just did like a real quick like write up like jam or whatever, and it was like something really easy, and I'm like, who fucking cares? Like if you're gonna go and do graffiti or go like big or whatever, like do it somewhere really hard. Do it somewhere that's like, oh shit, wow, you did like the Chase building or something like
good luck.
Like yeah, right. Yeah, good luck. Yeah, if you rappel down the Chase building, and you mark that shit up, hell yeah, dude. I'm about it. I think that's just tight. Plus my corporates.
It's funny you bring the Chase building up because I had a buddy who I went to art school with, and I actually recently told this story on another podcast. So I'll keep it pretty brief, but
yeah, go for it.
Long story short, him and his other buddy Dawson are like urban explorer dudes who like they go on rooftops of buildings and check out abandoned buildings and stuff. And they found like this inventory list. I think this is how the story goes. They found like some list that these urban explorers from like the early 2000s that are like in their 40s now who used to urban explore stuff. There was like a database that had like how-tos to get onto these buildings and like, okay, there's a ladder on the 5th floor. If you walk up that, there's a lock to pick on door number 7. You go in that, and then eventually you'll get to the rooftop. And so like they found this database and eventually found out that these guys in the early 2000s actually got on top of the Chase Tower. And so in probably, I think it was maybe 2014 or 2015, Dawson and him actually got on top of the Chase Tower. And like Dawson has a picture sitting on the Chase logo.
That's so sick.
And like he posted it on Instagram with the caption "Sup Indy."
Dude, and there's a lot of people that would be like, that's fucked up, man, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, they're just having, you know what? Don't
It's
get me
super
wrong.
dangerous.
It's an insurance nightmare.
100%.
It's super dangerous.
It's terrible.
You need to know your climbing ability, and you need to know your balance, and you need to know like, what you're about, like to do that. Like, but I mean, it's still, man, it's really tight, dude. We got one life to live. We got one meat suit, like one space meat suit that's just literally just a bag of meat with water and electricity flowing through it. We might as well make the most of it and at least do our life as much as we can, because like we only have one of them as far as we know. So it's like, I think that shit's tight.
Yeah, that's
you get away with it. Tight, hell yeah.
Well, I think they ended up having some legal issues down the road. I think
He
one of
posted
them
it on the internet.
Yeah. I mean, it ended up making the news, and like it was in the newspaper, and like I think
my God.
one of them ended up he rooftopped some like 70-story building in Chicago and got arrested or something. So like they've had to tamper their passions of rooftopping skyscrapers.
At least don't do it and don't post it. Just you don't have to have evidence that you did it.
Yeah, but at the same time, like they're beautiful photographs. Like
so sick
from a perspective of like the art and being able to share it with people is something that almost makes it worthwhile, so that they can see the photo and they can kind of relive that experience and share it with other people.
You know what? I never really thought of that. That's a really good point, because then you're inspiring other people like, hey, like maybe there isn't as many limits as I think there is.
Yeah, just to show people that something as crazy as that is even possible. Because I mean, anymore, it just kind of seems like, here's all the rules you must follow. I mean, granted, to live in a society, like there are rules that should be followed. You can't go around killing people and terrorizing people.
Yeah. But I mean, it didn't hurt anybody. People. They didn't hurt anybody. Their whole thing, I mean, I understand the other side of the point of view as far as like insurance liabilities, security, and like also showing other people that, another person got on the chase tower today. Oh, we're gonna go scrub them up. It's just some guy goes out there with a big hook and he's like, I got you, man. No, don't move around. Just like rips you out of it. But I'm like split on that, because
I know.
I own like 3 businesses, and I'm like, oh man, like hold on real quick. Like,
yeah, super dangerous, super risky.
Like and I climb like
you've been climbing boulders.
I climb like a lot now. For like the last like 5 months I've been climbing.
How's that been?
Awesome. 3 to 5 times a week. Go climbing. It's so fun. It's definitely really humbling as well, and it has nothing to do with art or sitting. So I really
how do you feel about getting into that? I mean, you've been on the art grind for so long. Have you had other things non-art related for a while that you've been into? Or is this kind of one of the first that is completely void of art to a certain extent?
I was into cycling for a little bit. I think it's really important as artists to, especially as creatives, we're so in our little head all the time, and we're not very active, and we sit a lot, except for writers and muralists or whatever. You guys are fucking active as fuck.
But there's a lot of sitting on a computer though too.
There is too, yeah. So, but it's fun to do something that isn't drawing and it isn't sitting. So I really enjoy that, and that's why I got into it. My ex April, she was like, "Hey, I've been bouldering, my friend. This is like 4 years ago," and she's like, "Oh, we should try it or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, this is really fun." And I never really put the energy into it as much as I should, because it was at Hoosier Heights, and it was like 40 minutes away. And I was like, that's like a big trek. And it was closed at like, I think they closed at 10 or 9 at the time. And I was like, oh, that's a lot. So recently North Mass opened up, and my friend Bart posted a picture of it on the internet, which inspired me, because I was like, oh wait, that's like 5 minutes from my house. So I went there and I started bouldering again, and using my bouldering shoes I already had a chalk bag. And I was like,
nice.
This is awesome. Like, this is so much
fun. The place
fun.
is nuts.
It is. It's really nuts. And honestly, like I've been to a lot of bouldering gyms now, because I travel around a lot for tattooing. And it's probably the nicest bouldering gym in the Midwest. Like, wow. I would probably fight people on that. Like, it's really nice. Like, that's
awesome. Shout out Zach and Elliot, the 2 dudes that put that on. They did a great job with that building for sure.
So sick. Like, and they had that giant mural in the front.
Yeah, I was actually supposed to paint a mural on the outside of that building with like really cool abstract shapes. Cool. Yeah, but I guess the building is in some historic classification, so they have to wait a certain
Oh
amount of
my
years
God.
before they can do stuff like that.
Dude, yeah.
There's a lot of that
Historic
in
zoning.
Indianapolis,
Oh my
dude.
God, yeah.
A lot of red
We
tape.
we know all about the zoning and stuff. God, just to put up a 2 foot by 8 foot sign on my front building was like 2.5 months. Historical Society encroachment permit because they put the cultural trail on our building line.
Hmm.
And then they built like a building permit. So it was 3 different types of permits just to put up a 8 foot by 2 foot sign, and it was 10 feet in the air, and it isn't fucking with anybody. And then they put a bus stop in front of my shop. So then all the signage that I got permits for was just like, poof. Thanks, Indy. Appreciate it.
Dang,
You owe me $2,000 in
that's
permit.
savage.
Yeah, right.
That's crazy, man.
But yeah, it's I think definitely as artists we should probably just trying to like pursue like just something that is a little bit more, again, a different medium, different, completely something different. Like I like doing something different. I think it's super fun. So it was a good time.
Definitely, man.
Yeah, so it was super fun.
So when you first started kind of tattooing, were you at that ink therapy? Is that what it's called? Or what was the
No, I was at a shop first off called Art Alliance. It was in Beech Grove. And then I went from there, apprenticed under a guy named Ryan Derringer to start off with. And after like 2 3 months of apprenticing, I was like competing, he said, against like 8 other apprentices.
hmm.
And I don't know if that was actually true. I never saw like a lot of them. So anyway, I was like, okay, cool. Uh, so I worked there for a little bit, and then everybody left my mentor because they, I guess for artistic reasons, they didn't like him. I'm
Hmm.
not going to sit here and talk ill about tattooers. I don't have a part of that. I'm also own a supply company, so I don't want to do that anyway.
Yeah, it
Don't
probably
do
gets
that.
very drama filled
Please
too
buy
very
from me.
quickly.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the graffiti art scene
Yeah,
and
oh,
was like full of drama. You
dude, it's
guys
high
remember
school.
oh, I can't believe they fucking tagged on me or whatever. Their piece went into mine. Anyway, but yeah, so I left there eventually after a year because everybody left him. After a year working there, I left and worked with an old coworker for like 3 months at like a private studio in New Palestine. And it was like,
Hey, I grew up there.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
dude,
we're in New
that
Palestine.
it was across the street from that like that diner that had the milkshakes. What was that called?
Frosty Boy.
Frosty Boy. That place was tight.
Yeah,
So that was
dude,
great.
crazy.
Yeah, that shit was good, man. I actually got a lot of milkshakes in there.
Frosty Boy's bomb.
So I did that. And I was like, okay, this is like kind of quiet. And I really like social interaction with other artists. I think that's really important for other art to grow and artists to grow in general, is to have interaction, or at least for me is my journey in
Yep.
art. It helps me out. So I agreed. My old coworker Miles hit me up and he's like, hey, would you be interested in working at Fountain Square Artistic Skin Design that's going to open up? And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. And I was like, okay, cool. So I ended up working there and it was pretty tight, but it was kind of a bummer because when it first opened, I was the only one there. And then another guy worked there, Jeff Downey, for like a couple of days. So it was like I would work 4 days there and he would work 3 days there, and we would just split. So I was still alone. And I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
crap. So I was alone. And then my buddy Nick McNulty hit me up and said, hey, do you want to work at Ink Therapy? And I was like, yeah, sure. It's like, and it was with a bunch of my friends who are great artists, and they were super inspiring. And I went to work there and started like working there, and it was really awesome, and it was a good time, and I met a lot of friends and met a lot of connections. And eventually, I wanted to move closer to Indy and have a little bit more freedom. So I left there with a couple of my other friends in the shop and went back to Fountain Square Artistic, and then we worked there and it was super awesome. And then the building was up for lease or whatever because Linton was selling it. I don't know if you're familiar with Fountain Square as far as like the who owns what. There's a
Yeah,
lot of people who
I've
own
heard it's a
stuff.
mess.
Yeah, it's really just like 4 people that own everything.
Yeah.
My friend is one of them, so it's kind of cool. So Barry was like, oh yeah, our lease is up, what are you guys gonna do? And I was like, oh, we're gonna probably open up a shop, like obviously like the shit's over. And he's like, oh well, if you want to come work for me again or whatever, I'm buying this building. And I was like, oh okay, cool. So we ended up
Sweet.
going over there and hanging out and started our Fountain Square Tattoo. Super nice. I've been there ever since. I love it. It's great. It's been open since 2017. 2.5 months shut down for lockdown, obviously. But yeah, we've been working ever since. I work with 6 other people now. A couple pans of like a couple people come and go or whatever, but everybody that's worked at the shop has basically remained friends. Like it hasn't been like any ill will. I always try to preface that as much as possible, especially when people start working in the shop. I'm like, hey, if you have a problem or you're upset, please say something. Don't bottle it up. Like if you bottle it up, it's gonna be worse. So just say it when you got it, and it's way easier. So, but yeah, so that has been working there ever since. I work at Fountain Square or tattoo. I'm basically like the unofficial manager. So I basically just have to like deal with all that stuff. So I just basically like try to like keep the peace and make sure that there's like paper towels and stuff.
I bet that's something you never thought you'd have to do. You thought you'd
uh
just be art probably the whole time, and now you're like, oh, paper towels. We have to make sure
oh
we
well,
have.
I mean, I started a tattoo supply company, international tattoo supply company like 3 years ago called Cream Tattoo Supply. That is something I thought I would never do.
Yeah,
And that is the biggest, honestly, one of the biggest time consumers of my life as far as like,
really.
yeah, because I'm an importer exporter through China, and I'm also dealing with like products and like branding and stuff, which is super fun as as an artist, like coming up with brands and stuff like I call it's called Cream Tattoo Supply, and I made a little logo, and it's like a little cat with like a drippy face, and it's really cute, and that was super fun. And my buddy from Shane from South Africa, him and his girlfriend Kirsten, like they run like a South Africa division, and she does most of the branding and graphics now because she's way better at it than I am. So, but it was been really fun. So doing that, but distributing through the world for tattoo supplies has been a lot. So we'll like get stuff from factories and make modifications and change it and make sure that it's like more geared towards tattooers and like actual tattooers. That's not a corporate owned tattoo company like a lot of them are, where they're just like, oh, this new product. Like I'm sure you've got a lot of street art products. You're like, no one's ever going to use that. Like, why does that exist? This exists and it's better. And it's like you're just trying to sell a snake oil right now. So, and it's like, did you even test that before you did it? Like in a lot of those, I'm sure a lot of the street artists and a lot of the tattooing community itself is also like, yo, dude, did you even test that project? Like when they're like, no, I don't tattoo or I don't do art. And it's like, quit trying to sell me something I'm not gonna fucking use.
Right.
So I started a supply company, and I have 3 employees now. And I have employees that are on payroll, that are salaried and W-2'd, and that's a hell. So
Yeah, dude, look at you. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, it's real
Who would
fun.
have thought, right?
Who would have thought? In this economy, come on, look at us.
Come on, huh? That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It really is. But it's fun. It's a new avenue. It's really stressful, but I
You
have a
stay
lot.
busy. How do you have the time? Like, how do you have the time to do these wall canvas things and tattoo designs and stuff? I mean, do you
Uh,
turn it off ever?
no,
No?
I am single and I have 0 animals and I live alone.
There you
That
go.
is
Yeah, you
how I
can
do
get,
it.
yep, that
No
explains a
one is there to
lot.
tell me no.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah, and I take care of my parents. Like I said, my grandparents are raising me, but they're like elderly now and they're not in the best health. My dad has Alzheimer's and dementia, and my mom has Alzheimer's and dementia now too. So I also have to like, I'm the POA of my dad, so I also have to like do legal paperwork and like kind of look after him and stuff, and that's a big headache. And it's like 3 hours north for me too. But other than that, like those two people or whatever, other than that, I don't have like a lot of other things going on. So I'm able to like focus on like my coworkers, my employees, my friends, and then also a rigorous sleep schedule at 11 every day. And I wake up at 9 every morning, and it has to be that way or else. And then also like getting out there and being more physically active kind of helps relieve some of the stress that you might experience. So
That's awesome, man. I mean, tremendous shout out to you and all you've been able to accomplish, man. It's every time I see your red van driving around or something, I'm like,
I
dude,
got 2 of them now. Have you seen the other one?
I don't think I have. Wait, is
There's
it
a
wrapped in
No,
like
there's
a
the white
design?
one that's covered in fucking graffiti, like tags, like it is insane looking.
I don't think
Like
I've seen
it,
that one. You'll have to send me a picture.
I'll send you a picture of it. It looks like a straight up like a van from like a
The Chappie movie.
no, it like verbatim that.
Yeah,
Yeah, verbatim
that's
that. Like
sick.
it's awesome. Yeah, it was cool because me and my buddy Jet, he goes by Jumbo Jet. He's a writer. And we did the van together, and I was like, oh man, this thing like looks kind of crazy. We kind of fucked it up. I was like, whatever. But then my employee Chad Z, I was like, hey, you got an awesome route. I was like, I gave him some bombing pens, some what are those called, mops. I gave him like
Ops,
10
yeah.
mops, and I was like, hey, I was like, just give them out to artists, and they can tag the van. It could be like a
Sick.
community project, and it's taken off. It's awesome. It's so cool looking, and a lot of tattooers are writers or muralists
Hmm.
or just painters or creatives in general. So it has become like the craziest looking thing ever. And I love it. I think it's
An art
awesome.
class chalkboard, yeah.
Yeah, it's an art class chalkboard, but it moves around and it travels from Louisville to Indianapolis. So
That's
I
sick,
enjoy
man.
that.
I mean, I know you were on Ink Master, the TV show,
Yeah,
right?
sure. It was I was on Ink Master. Yeah, that was a lot.
I can imagine. I figured that's probably a topic for a different day.
yeah. Yeah, I think it gets taken away. I guess I've been lucky and I've had a pretty eventful life. So that's been pretty nice. So
Dude, what more could you ask for? For
exactly. And
real.
likewise, good luck with all your endeavors. I love seeing pieces that you throw up. So I'm excited to see more of your stuff around indie. And
Thanks, dude.
once I own the building, hopefully I'll commission you to do the building. So
That'd be sick. Gladly, we'll have to
just gotta get it
collaborate.
through the fucking Fountain Square tattoo, not Fountain Square tattoo, the Fountain Square Historical Society, and be
Right,
like, this
right.
is what it's gonna look like. I know it reaches more than 80% of the front-facing facade, but is it okay? Here's the color mock-ups. Here's the hue code. Is this okay?
Yeah, here's the Sherwin-Williams paint swatches exactly.
Dude, no
And
fucking joke.
their
That's real. That's
codes.
real life. That's what people don't think about when they're doing art. I'm like, that's a lot of back stuff that you don't get to see.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The red tape, the administrative tasks, emails, and things like that.
Thousands of dollars in permits.
Yeah. That's like the biggest thing for doing this podcast is just to kind of talk about the fact that it's not just what Instagram shows where, oh, I paint a
Oh,
mural
no.
all the time and it's all rosy and sunshiny. It's like, dude, like with your experience, like, well, there's childhood trauma involved. There's like,
Yeah, yeah, there's tons of stuff.
sleepless nights having to create,
Um,
doing scuffed
hours and hours of
tattoos.
sleeves and stuff. Like I have to do some weeks I have like 5 sleeves to draw. And that's like an hour to 2 hours minimum per sleeve outside of work that I'm not paid for.
Crazy.
And I hope the person likes it.
Mm,
I have the luxury now of because of having like years of doing it that people trust me now. So
yeah.
I'm very appreciative of those clients and people that trust me with their work.
Dude, it's the
But
best thing ever. When you
before
do
that,
something and they're just like, yeah, that. You're like, thank God.
I know you're like, no more
Oh,
hours of just bullshit.
yeah,
Yeah, you're
dude.
like, please like this. Like, I'm crazy. I send my clients drawings 3 days in advance. Tattooers think I'm insane for that. But I'm like, dude, if you want to change it, you're gonna be wearing it for the rest of your life. Like, I can at least give you 3 days to like kind of think about it. And if you
At
don't
least.
like it, you don't like it, I don't want you to come in and then me be like weird and be like, are you gonna
All
get this
mad.
or not?
Yeah.
Please, can you get this? Because my hands, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I respect that for sure.
yeah. It was I think we as artists, we everybody does have an ego as far as like what they feel like they're owed or they feel like they're part of or whatever. But what it does come down to it, we are operating in a little gray area where we have to understand that we are doing things for other people,
Yup.
especially me as a tattooer, like altering someone's body. Like we're doing something for other people, and you doing something where you're going to have millions and millions of people looking at this building all day. Like in 1 week, you could have a million people look at it.
I don't know about Indianapolis, but
Probably not Indianapolis.
maybe a
There's
few
only
thousand.
800,000 in
Yeah.
Indianapolis, but still a
But
lot of
still,
people are
it's a lot
looking
of
at it.
people.
It's a lot of people. So it's we do have a little bit of like responsibility as far as like when we're making art for the public and being a paid artist that we are dealing with clients and we are dealing with stuff like that. So there is a little bit of a headache, but it does get easier over time. So
Hmm.
I would say that to anybody, any creative getting in the job, it's going to suck. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of you working and not being paid and a lot of frustrations. But, if you can find mentors or you can find people that you can bounce off of as far as like the business aspects go, that helps out. And then just like, again, like trying to just meet somewhere in the middle. So that way both client and artists are happy. And then you don't want to pull your hair out. So
Yeah, definitely, dude. That's super well said. You know, the creative journey is always a journey. It's not, an end goal of, hey, I've arrived.
yeah, you're not the Andy Warhol where you just get to do
Right.
whatever you want. And people are like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Oh, how am I God? And they're like, well, thank you, Mr. Million Dollar Man. Can I have some of your money? And they're like, oh, yes, I am the Monopoly Man. And they just hand you a giant suitcase of cash and then you walk out and then you get to be in
Yeah.
a private island doing little stick figures and people pay you for that. Yeah, that's not like how it is.
Yeah, art gets crazy, dude. It gets crazy real fast.
Yeah, it does. And especially
Who's the most like wealthy tattoo artist like right now, or most
for
famous, well known?
tattooing or for their endeavors.
I don't know, both.
I think Kat Von D is her makeup line is insane. I think
Yeah.
she makes like I think it's like
Dude, she bought a house in Indiana
yeah, she did. I
in
heard that.
Vive.
Dude, everybody literally was talking about it
Yo,
because I'm
that house
like,
is dope. I actually drove through Vive like
this
a
sick.
year ago before she ever bought the house. My girlfriend and I were just driving to random towns in Indiana. Dude, it's like, have you been to Vive before? Dude, it's like this tiny little town along the Ohio River.
That's so
And like there's this main road in the town that drives right back, and her house is like at the end of this main road in town
that's crazy.
up on a hill. It's literally like
The governor's house kind of thing.
yeah, but if the governor was like Dracula, like
I
the house is like
heard it was
super
like
evil
haunted or
looking.
something, right?
Oh, I don't know, maybe.
I love that. I think
It's a cool house, dude.
tattooers are spooky people, so it makes sense that they want to do that. I think it's awesome. But yeah, she's probably the most, I'd say she's probably the most successful. Nico Hurtado of Black Anchor. My friend Carlos Rojas works at Black Anchor and Hesperia, California. They're both amazing artists. I don't know Nico personally, but I know Carlos personally. Uh, but it's like people like that, like, Nico has come out like Stencil Solution and things like that. Troy Temple, who owns Villain Arts, which is like I think there's 13 conventions a year, and he's always putting them on. And he's so gracious with a lot of his tattooers that he had invites to the conventions, and he's very successful. I mean, you can easily be a millionaire tattooing or just any business or whatever, but it's like it just takes a lot of work.
Sure,
And you gotta diversify your bonds. Like that shit is real. Like people say that all the time, but it's like if you want to be in one avenue, you can go to a certain point. Like you can make like I think Bang Bang makes probably like $1 million or $2 million or $3 million tattooing, but he owns a tattoo shop. So and he also does like webinars and weird stuff like that. So it's like you can get to a certain point or whatever, but if you want to go past that point, you have to like diversify to do other things. So you can like culminate into a bigger thing. Like I own a tattoo supply company, hopefully to own a full shop, and I tattoo for a living. So I also do murals and graphics and stickers and stuff for my friends. I don't do that, and commissions. Do not hit me up. I will not design your business card. I do not care.
Also, dude, shout out another Smith doing something prominent, dude. What's up?
Yeah, right.
Us out here with very forgettable last names, trying to make it in the digital era.
I got lucky with at least having the first name Dane, I guess. So.
Yeah, Dane's pretty cool.
But yeah, I kind of like it when people say, "Hey, Mr. Smith," and go, like it's kind of cute, They go, "Oh, reservation for Mr. Smith," and do you feel like
like a CIA agent?
Yeah, you feel like I think the Matrix did it, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Mr. Smith for the program.
Yeah, that dude was scary in that movie for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, dude.
He's like robotic almost.
I love it. He had the greatest things ever. I mean, honestly though, even in Lord of the Rings, he was like kind of spooky. Like he was like the high elf. I'm like, yo, why are you so mean? Chill out, man. You're like 1 million years old. Calm down.
Yeah, this is wild. Well, dude, it's been fun. We'll have to get together sometime soon.
Yeah, I love that, man.
I think my older brother was actually I don't know how he knew who you were or your tattoo work, but he was like, Nick, have you heard of Dane Smith? I'm like, yeah, actually I have. He's like, oh, I love his tattoo work. His stuff is so cool. Like my brother's not even like that into tattoos. I think he has maybe one.
That's awesome.
But he brought your name up somehow. I was
like, that's super cool, man.
He's in Indy.
Yeah, I'm trying, dude. I don't know. I hate my stuff. So
no, man, it's beautiful, man. You do great work, and it's cool to see, especially people from Indy, like spreading their wings, doing stuff outside of Indy too, while also trying to build up Indy at the same time. And
for sure, man. I think a lot of times when people get Indy or whatever, they like when they branch out, they leave or whatever. I love Indy. It's awesome. Indy's tight.
Definitely.
People talk shit about India. I'm like, have you been to other places in the country? Because Indy's pretty easy.
Yeah, Indy's chill. I like it.
Mm,
It's definitely slept on, I feel like. And I don't know, when I hear people that are just, oh man, Indiana, Indianapolis, man, it just sucks here. Like I can't wait to leave. It's like, dude,
That's you, dude.
yeah, I don't know.
That's not the city.
Indy's
That's you, bro.
Indy's pretty cool. You can actually like send an email to people and like someone will receive that email. Some other
Yeah, yeah. An
cities, it's
actual
like
person will
it's so
receive it.
corporatized to where you can't even reach people, you know?
Yeah, and you'll see them later. You're like, oh, hey, we talked. I'm like, I talked to you. Hey, what's up? Nice to meet
Yeah.
you, Jackie, or whatever your name is. But yeah, it's super fun to do that because a lot of cities like LA or like New York or whatever, it's totally different. Like,
It's hard to reach people.
yeah, I mean, because they're dealing with so many people. Like, I feel like Indy's a good mix between like big city and little city. So yeah.
Definitely, man. Well, Dane, keep crushing it, dude.
Thank you. Likewise.
Look forward to speaking again at some point. I'm sure
Dude,
you've
for
got
sure.
lots and lots of more stories and perspectives.
Yeah, I've got some crazy stories for sure. Oh my God.
I'll have to pick your brain on the cream tattoo supply stuff more.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. Yeah,
It
if you
sounds
ever,
super interesting and also very
yeah,
complex.
yeah,
Like,
there's a lot, especially with tariffs right now. It's been a
oh
little
man.
big. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I just had to ship a painting to Canada and Canadian Customs is charging me $260 just to
Mhm.
ship the painting through there.
Yep.
So I can only imagine you shipping stuff all around the world,
Dude,
how much of a headache that must be.
someone complained to me yesterday. They were like, because we get about 20 orders a day online, and
Nice.
someone complained to me yesterday that the shipping was $24 to ship 5 boxes to them, and I said, it actually is more money than that. I'm only charging you $24, and I'm so sorry, but that's just how shipping is right now. And then they didn't respond.
Also, just a heads up, we are living on a planet, just FYI, just in case you guys weren't
Yeah.
aware, and shipping a little thing across a massive planetary body in the solar system is kind of pricey. Sorry to tell you.
Oh, dude, it's so expensive.
Like,
I messed up one time shipping some tubes to my friends in New Zealand, and I had to ship them another package, and it cost me like $280.
dang.
I was like, it was like this big. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's me being stupid. And I've shipped giant paintings too, and that was like, hundreds of dollars too. So
But then
yeah.
you look at New Zealand, you're like, oh yeah, they're like basically in the middle of like the ocean. So
Oh yeah. It's like some little guy in a dinghy has to go out there with your painting, and
yeah.
he paid like $40 every 2 weeks. And he's like, I hope this gets to where it's supposed to be going. And then he just
Yeah.
like throws it on shore, and it's like, I can't believe it was all ruined.
Right.
You're like,
Yeah.
well,
It had to
only over
take a
here.
journey, dude. Like
Yeah.
back in the day, people were putting like messages like
Dude.
attached to a bird. And they're
Dude,
like,
yeah,
good luck
exactly.
getting this
Right.
message, bro.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Twitter was real back then. But
That's
I mean,
awesome.
that's a good example too, is like everybody doesn't realize that, but everything that you're wearing and everything that's behind you right now and everything that's behind me right now basically came from China nine times out of 10. And it came on a shipping container in the ocean that took 2 months to get to the United States. And then it was distributed through a wider company.
Through a freight system
Through a
on
freight
steel
system.
rails.
Yeah, by a guy who makes 37K a year to live on a boat for a month and a half out of the year away from his family and kids.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's like,
The world's wild,
just
my friend.
check yourself for 2 seconds and think about, especially now with the pandemic, think about why they're out of stock, what's happening. And you know what? It's just, it is what it is, dude. The pandemic hasn't made it easier. I'll tell you that. So
Yeah. Oh man, I can only imagine. Well, shoot, Dane. Appreciate you, buddy.
yeah, dude, you have a
We'll
good
have
day,
to
dude.
link up sometime soon.
Yeah,
And
totally hit me up whenever.
yeah, I don't have any tattoos. It's not that I am disinterested in getting a tattoo, but even just to like see a few tattoos being done, like I just love to watch that process
Yeah,
sometime.
totally. If you ever want to hang out, yeah, just hit me up.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah, I
For
don't care.
sure. Sweet, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your, what is it,
Dude, likewise.
Saturday?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Enjoy your time off. Maybe do some climbing or something. Who knows?
No, I'm on rest day. I'm gonna eat a bunch of
There you
food.
go. Nice,
Later,
man.
dude.
Peace, dog.
Peace.